Charlie Overbey.
How you doing?
Look at you. You know, Charlie, I was thinking about your journey, man. And by the way, before we get started, I should probably mention this. Your forthcoming album, In Good Company, out July 26th, wherever music is sold. But Charlie, I was thinking about you, man. You have been a mainstay in rock and roll for almost 3 decades, man. Do you
Yeah.
ever do you ever sometimes just kind of marvel that you're still here creating great art because the album is great?
I I marvel that I'm still here. Period.
Like alive, period.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, every decade, I think, okay, this is the decade that's taken me out. Because they used to just get crazier and crazier. I mean, there was the 80s when I was a kid doing it, and that was pretty crazy. But then uh, the 90s were really something. And I thought, man, if I make it to be 30, it's going to be unbelievable. And then I made it through the 90s and then 2000, the beginning of 2000. So really, I mean, it's been like 40 years of doing this crazy shit.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's pretty crazy. I feel very lucky to still be around doing it.
Yeah. But you're totally right. I mean, you've been around and you've seen like things come and go. And it's so funny now because, I mean, you and I know this now, like backstage and all that. It's all about like health, right? It's like it like went 100 the other way around. Now people are like doing
Completely.
ice baths and green juices, stuff like, and you've seen it all, Charlie.
Yeah, it was much more fun before, honestly. I think you have to kind of make your own fun in this day and age, and playing music is fun, you know. Um, but yeah, there used to be a lot more extracurricular activities that went on with rock and roll
Yeah.
that don't come into play so much anymore. But that's probably a good thing. But I think that most artists will live longer.
Including you. I mean, you look great, Charlie, and it's gonna
Thank
be
you.
and it's gonna be uplifting for you, Charlie. That like the music that you've always been playing, which is like you've always like stuck with it. You've believed in the quality of the rock and roll. It's coming back now, and you have friends of our show like Jaime Wyatt, like Marcus King, uh,
Yeah.
that of course you did Champagne, Cocaine, Cadillacs, and Cash with, that are kind of like coming around and carrying that vein. And that's gonna feel good for you because you never abandoned that sound, Charlie.
Yeah. Yeah. It's cool to be old enough to see everything kind of come back, and even as far as the old rock and roll, I mean, it went from rock and roll to punk rock to, I guess rockabilly was happening at the same time as the punk rock and the new wave. And it all goes in phases. Um, but it's cool to see the country Americana thing doing so well again. And now that the country Americana thing is doing so well, it made me want to make more of a rock and roll record than a country record.
Interesting.
So this record does have some country elements to it, but I feel like it really is more of a rock and roll record.
Oh, sure.
The Champagne, Cocaine, Cadillacs, and Cash obviously has that old country feel to it. But it was cool with this record because, not to give away too much, but I mean, the record is called In Good Company, and I just pulled in a lot of artists, all my friends that I loved and wanted to do collaborations with for a long time. And I put together a big group of songs, and I thought, okay, who's the best guitar player for this song? Obviously, Marcus King. Who's the best guitar player for this song? Probably Duane Betts. Who's the best guitar player for this song? This song kind of sounds like it could have been on Born to Run. So we got Nils Lofgren,
Yeah.
which was like, what? Nils Lofgren is going to be on my record? So it's really, it's mind blowing to be able to make a record like this. And I feel so blessed and so lucky to be at my age. I mean, I'm 56 years old now, which I probably shouldn't tell people, but it's no big secret. I've been doing it for so long. They figure this guy's got to be 50 something. So, but yeah, I mean, I'm 56 and I'm still running around like I'm 20 and working harder than I did when I was 20 and honestly doing more, getting more done. And I don't know if I'm having as much fun as I did when I was 20, but I'm still having fun. Yeah. If that makes sense. Like you said, the playing field was totally different back then. I mean, it was okay. We were encouraged to drink too much and, smell cocaine. And not that we ever did it, we just smelled it. And chase girls. Back then it was cool to chase girls. It was okay, you know?
Yeah.
And the whole thing has changed so much, and I think it's better. I do think it's better. But rock and roll has lost its danger. It used to be the danger was a big, exciting part of rock and roll. And I think it was for everyone, for the artists, for the fans, for everyone that was involved, because when you went to a concert, you never knew what was going to happen. With a live show, you didn't know if the singer was going to get so drunk he was going to fall off the stage. And you almost hoped that was going to happen.
Right.
Nowadays, aside from Vince Neil falling down because he's old.
I did see that.
Yeah. Funny, right? But not funny. There's no sense of danger or mystery to rock and roll. It doesn't feel like anymore. So I'm hopeful that the younger generation is going to get a little more debaucherous, not in the same ways that we did, because then they're not going to survive.
Yeah.
But the circle of rock and roll is vicious. As I tell I've got an 18-year-old daughter that now is in the business and she's kicking ass. And I tell her all the time, it's a rough business,
Ruthless.
Yeah.
You know what it is, Charlie, man? Just when you were telling me that, I'm a little younger than you, but still I remember the days where there was an allure to Charlie Overbey and to, Dickie Betts and kind of like to the rockstars that you love. You didn't get a chance. Like you and I remember we had to go get a magazine and that's all the access we got besides seeing that concert in person. Now, if you're an artist, and I'm not an artist, but I'm sure you go through this. You got to tell people, like when you're writing, you got to show people you're behind the scenes. And I think that a lot of that allure has been lost. How do you feel about that?
Well, like I said, there's no mystery anymore. You can get on to people's social media, and for the most part, it's been hard as an artist because the management on the press and everyone will tell you, oh, you have to be out in it. You have to be in it or you're going to lose your longevity and your people will lose interest in you if they don't see you. So they tell you, you have to get out there and you have to, put all this stuff out and you have to share your life. And I think it's a catch-22 because people want to have mystery.
Yeah.
They want their artists to be mysterious. But we have all been trained now. Everyone, even us old guys, have been trained to where you have to be out there and you've got to put yourself out there and you've got to share things because people want to see your life. They want to see your French bulldogs. They want to know what you eat. Not necessarily what you eat. But I think the day of showing people your smoothie is over. Thank God. But
amen to that, man.
Yeah. But, I think it's made it a little bit difficult to keep the mystique of the artist, to keep it where people are excited. I mean, obviously, if you run into someone in the supermarket and they're like, holy crap, you're so-and-so, like seeing you on Instagram, it becomes a whole different thing because you're in person. And you can see it with people. Like when I run into people in a weird place, like it could be anywhere, and you run into someone that knows who I am, and which is sort of rare these days anyway, but it does happen. And I'll run into people, and a lot of people, it's weird because if they know your music and they know you as an artist, then they're blown away, and they almost are almost starstruck, like in the old days.
Sure.
But if they know you from your Instagram and they don't necessarily know you as an artist, but they follow you on Insta, they know you're an artist, but they don't really get it. Then it's a different thing when they're like, hey, I know you, because they feel like you're one of their good friends.
Totally.
It's really bizarre.
Man, I can't imagine what it's like for you. Because I mean, I'm just like a journalist, and that happens in Nashville. And these people, I'm like, should I know your name? Like, you almost feel like bad, right?
Yeah, isn't it weird? Because they're like, hey, what's going on? How are you doing? And you're like, oh, do I know this person? I feel like I know this person. They sure feel like they know me. And there's always that thing in the back of your mind, like, maybe I know them. Do I pretend like I know them? Shall I just say, I'm sorry, I don't know you? You don't want to offend people. But at the same time, it's kind of like, who is this?
Oh my
and
God.
you almost have to say, like, whether through Instagram.
When was the last time that I saw you? That's my escape route. But anyway.
That's a good one. Yeah.
Oh God, Charlie, man, you are hilarious. You're cracking me up. But Charlie, I mean, you've briefly touched a little bit about the '90s and all that, but I am fascinated by that chapter, kind of like when Custom Made Scare, when you guys kind of landed that amazing deal. But before you like took off and like you started taking over North American venues, you had to go to jail for like a year. Was that was that like?
That was fun. That was a fun one.
But like, first of all, why did you go to jail, Charlie? And was that hard? Like knowing, like, did you think you blew it?
You know, talk about it too much, but honestly, it was a really great learning experience for me. It was at a point in my life where I was pretty crazy. You know, I was pretty out there, and all I wanted to do was party. And I got in some trouble. That was for some stuff that I had done when I was like 19 years old.
Sure. And you know,
and it just came back on me. And so wonder, like, if I wouldn't have had to have gone to prison for that year, if I would have still lived to go on and do everything else that I did.
Gotcha.
Because I mean, I was out of control. I was crazy. And I can look back on it honestly now, especially when I look at the Custom Made Scare tapes and I see us out on tour and I see the video footage, and I'm just like, oh man, I would drink before we would go on. I would easily drink at least a half a bottle of Jack Daniels before we got on stage. And then I would have it on there with me, and I would be running across tabletops, falling off of tabletops, up on the bar, falling off the bar. It was amazing to me that I survived that, really. Yeah. So when I got out, they had me on a pretty strict regimen where we would go on the road, and I would have every state. I would have to stop at the federal building and pee test and take drug tests and stuff. So they kept me pretty under control. yeah, they kept me pretty under control for a while, and long enough for me to build back up my my crazy, and want to get crazy again, which I did. Um, I went through crazy spurts of being that crazy loon, and after Custom Made Scare, I spent a lot of time playing drums, filling in on drums for this band Deadbolt, the scariest band in the world. And that band, the debauchery in that band was even heavier. And I mean, there were times I fell off the stage in New York and cracked my head open. I fell over in Europe and broke my shoulder. And then after my shoulder was broken, they gave me a whole bunch of pills because we'd had to go out on tour again. Right. And so I had all these pain pills, and then I got addicted to pain pills. And there was a point I think we had played Nashville, and we were headed to Memphis, and we got to Memphis early. We went to a party. This is before cell phones. I didn't even have a cell phone. And we got to this party, and I had been taking so many pills. I was basically like a heroin junkie, but with pills. And so we go to this party, and it was one of those things where you're nodding, and I could feel myself nodding out. And I knew I had to get out of that party. And I went back to the hotel, and I told the guys, I said, I'm going back to the hotel. I can't stay up anymore. And I went back to the hotel, and I took a Norco and had a Jack and Coke and went to sleep. And a little while later, they were shaking me, Charlie, wake up, Charlie. And I said, what's going on? They said, you got to get up. You're blue. And I was on my way out. I was laying in that bed dying. And they woke me up, and I got up, and I had some coffee, and I stayed up for hours. And then went back to sleep finally. Next morning, I got up, I took my Norco, I made a Jack and Coke, and we headed out to the next show. And that was just how we were living. It was just pushing the envelope, full tilt boogie all the time. And shortly after that, I think it was that tour when I came home, and I had some personal stuff going on, and then I just had someone pushed me to get sober. They said, you got to get sober. You're going to die. You really are going to die. You've been doing this for so long. How much can you push this envelope? And I did, and I got sober. And I stayed sober for 5 years, and did a lot of soul searching. And I found some compassion for myself that I hadn't had before. And I had my daughter, which was monumental. And I had some life to live for. And so I stayed sober for 5 years, and then I just started kind of sort of became a normal person, where I can go out and have a couple glasses of wine with a steak, drink a few beers with my buddies, even have a couple of shots of whiskey. I don't get out of control like I used to.
Love it.
I can. I'm sure I can.
Well, you're directing it into your art and into your entrepreneurship, Charlie. And by the way, thank you for sharing that, man. That was great. And but yeah, and thank you for your time. Let me leave you with this, Charlie, because I know you got a lot going on. Let's talk about your entrepreneurship, which is where a lot of kind of this energy went to, besides your incredible art that you're doing now, because being good companies, I think the best thing you've done.
Thank you.
Let's talk about Lone Hawk Hats, because good friend of our show, Lainey Wilson. She comes here about once a year. Huge fan of your hats, among many other people, obviously. Blackberry Smoke, we've seen them with them. Marcus King, and others that we haven't seen, but we know Beyonce wears them, and Foo Fighters. What a journey. You are quite an entrepreneur. What a success story from a business perspective, Charlie, if you want to leave us with that.
Yeah, that was a crazy thing. I actually started doing hats back in like 93, when it was that, the kind of glam rock and roll era. And I wanted to have big flamboyant hats, and nobody made them. So I made my own. And then in custom made Scare, I was doing the full bent up cowpunk hats. And then I didn't do any hats for a long time. And then about 9 years ago, I guess, 8 or 9 years ago, I needed to make some money. I needed to do something. I wasn't doing anything. And I was getting, sober, and, I had a lot of time on my hands, and the time on a guy like me's hands can lead to a lot of trouble. So I started making some hats, and Charlie Starr from Blackberry Smoke was the first one who saw them, and he reached out and said, "Hey, I don't know if you know who I am," is what he said. "I don't know if you know who I am, but I play in this band Blackberry Smoke, and I saw some hats that you made recently, and I would love you to make me some hats." So I made Charlie a couple of hats. 6 months later, we were on the road with Blackberry Smoke, which was incredible. And then it just went from there. It went from Charlie to Marcus King to Chris from Black Crows to Sheryl Crow. Like you said, Beyonce, I did all the hats for that 1883 show, the prequel to Yellowstone. I just sent a hat out a couple days ago to Kevin Costner. I sent another hat out 2 days ago or yesterday to Laney, another Laney hat. And, so it's neat. I get to work with some really, really creative people doing something creative other than music.
Sure.
And it's been a really cool journey, that hat thing, And when I started doing it, I mean, it wasn't hip. Like now it's so hip. There's so many people that have taken the Lone Hawk, whatever you would call it. They've kind of taken the Lone Hawk flag and run with it. And there's a lot of
course,
Lone Hawk copies out there, and that's cool. And people say, no, flattery. You should be flattered. It's flattering. Yeah, I have my different feelings about that. It's more like thieves in a horse stable, but that's how fashion works, and it's all good. And I have a beautiful built-in family with Lone Hawk, and we've got to raise money for Navajo Nation with that family, and it's been a beautiful thing. The Lone Hawk hats has been really a cool experience. And
amazing, Charlie.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Love to hear it, man. Well, dude,
you're in?
Yeah, man. I mean, we're in Nashville. We're in Nashville, so you obviously, yeah.
I'm coming.
Thanks for coming on the show. I mean, we're so, yeah, I love it. Whenever you're in town, man, let's connect. But yeah, man, really, really grateful that you're here, making the best music that you've ever made, looking great, and then kicking ass on the business end, too, Charlie. The music world needs you. So glad you're here, man.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Take care.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here for the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from J-Rod Concert Media.